Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top-performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses. We listen to the real-life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRN Podcast. Neil Carberry. So you and I have spent so much time sitting in our prospective homes, doing Zoom calls and that type of stuff. Look at us now. We've all grown up. We're in a studio.
Well, I mean, you've got a studio. I need to get you over to REC Towers to use my studio as well.
Yeah.
As well, you know, this is the modern era, isn't it?
It is. It's great. No, it's brilliant to have you here. Seriously, and I know you and I have spoken loads over the years, and I think, as you and I have always said, we've got very similar thoughts about the industry. I think we come from different angles, and I think that makes it very healthy. The purpose of today, we're going to talk about the sort of the future of the industry, and like who knows where it's going to go, right? And that's where we're going to delve into. To understand that, I want to go back first, and for those who don't know you, wouldn't mind just a quick overview of the Neil Carberry first of all. So, who are you? What are you doing here? And then your journey into the REC, and then a little bit more about the REC and the role that the REC is playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, me, who am I? That's a big question. Career-wise, I started in the industry. I did 4 or 5 years recruiting into the city in the 1990s, which was a great place to be.
Yep.
After that, I decided to broaden the wings a little bit, ended up in industrial relations, trade union relations, and for a long time was working at the CBI, the big cross-business organisation, looking after initially all of their relations with trade unions, but eventually all of their work on the labour market, skills and all of that. So when the REC needed a new chief executive in 2018, they went, that guy has been in the industry and he's worked for the biggest business membership organisation in the country for 14 years. That might be boot camp for running the REC. So I've been...
Was that 2018?
2018, yes. 7 years in June 25.
Wow, okay.
Which feels like, I mean, some things have intervened in that time. There is a reason we were talking to each other from our respective back rooms in 2020. The REC, well, in many ways, the REC is a very old organisation. In fact, it's 95 years old this year in terms of our oldest predecessor. And the way to conceptualise the REC is really as the trade and professional body for the industry in the UK. And I define that broadly because I think we're really good in recruitment in giving something a 3-letter acronym and dealing with it as a vertical and saying it's completely different from everything else. We might go and talk about that. But we see ourselves as the body for businesses who are helping their clients with talent.
Yeah.
And for us, probably the 3 bits of that. One is about advocacy. So right now, a lot of time going into the new government and some of the regulatory changes that we're seeing. But actually also just the day before we were speaking now, I was speaking to an audience of clients about compliance and worker fraud and doing it well and the value we create.
Right.
Aside from just finding a person and filling a job. So advocacy to the client matters as well. Big media profile.
Yeah.
But the other 2 bits, one is standards.
Yeah.
So being really clear that REC members, we expect to reach a standard. Other members expect REC members to reach a standard and communicate that standard. So good practice, keeping members safe. And then the last bit is business advice in a slightly different way to what you do. For us, it's about interpreting the world for people working in the sector, and then giving them a little bit of a steer about how to take it forward, and they'll jump off onto different pathways from there.
I want to touch on the standards piece because it's not an area that I'm really immersed in. The professionalisation of our industry. Do you think there'll ever be a point when there's a really hard, tough barrier of entry to become a recruiter, and the standards are really, really high, and we really are a professional industry? And I see us as a professional industry, and hopefully everyone else does, but I'm not necessarily sure we are or seen as that necessarily. Is that's something that's on your radar?
So I think we do ourselves down.
Okay.
And the worst things I've ever heard about recruitment, I've heard from other recruiters, not from clients.
Yeah.
I think the market is moving us to a place where we're a professional service, whether we like it or not. The barriers to entry are higher. You've got to have good technology now, for instance. Your client is difficult to find, and if you ring them and say, are you hiring, they'll tell you to get lost. Whereas if you ring them and say, look, I think you've got this problem, and we're thinking about how you solve that kind of problem, can we have a chat? You might get somewhere. So I think the skill set is changing. A lot of REC members I talk to, I'm sure you get the same back from people engaged with the TRN, is business development's been the real challenge of the last 18 months, because you find your client and then you've got to have a meaningful conversation with them. It's a different skill set. So I think a lot of the kind of the way technology is going and the way market's going, and I think on standards, I think there is a bit of a flight to quality from some of the big clients as well, in terms of, I need to know that I'm not being exposed to worker fraud or low compliance. I think that's starting to build a barrier that means that people see what we do as having intrinsic value, as well as just being fulfillment of a process. It'll take time. A bit of this is about how we grab it and how we then take it on, in terms of both how we sell ourselves and in terms of what skills we prioritize inside our own companies.
So I'm going to ask you this question because I know the answer. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but you will answer it from a different angle. I think a lot of recruitment companies talk about how we should move up the food chain and we're more consultative and we're treated better. Sometimes I question, is that us just trying to substantiate and sort of say our reason for being, basically? But you speak to the end users. You spent a lot, yesterday you were talking to end users and customers. Is that what they're saying? Do they want to work in partnership with us? Or do they just want us to be a supplier and turn up when we need them? Or are they actually saying, come inside our boardrooms, come and talk to us about how together we can work to create a better way of working for everyone in this sort of trifecta?
So clients are not a monolith. That's the challenge. And an individual client isn't a monolith.
Yeah.
So there absolutely is someone in procurement who is pressing that margin. But I talk to a lot of TA audiences and they're feeling budget pressure from the centre.
Yeah.
But when you talk about compliance, quality, alignment, you get a lot of positive feedback. I think that one of the things that has tended to happen over the last 20 or 30 years in the UK is we've lived in a world where candidate experience mattered maybe a bit less than it's going to, because we had quite a loose labour market, we had lots of available skills, largely because we had a big generation of baby boomers in the labour market. We're very focused in talking about how AI is going to loosen the labour market. I actually think that the demographic effects are at least as big, and the skills matches that we need are going to be more challenging for clients to address.
Yeah.
So I think those clients who grab hold of this, and this is the productivity challenge the whole UK economy stands or falls on, is companies who are successful are going to be companies who think about how they deploy labour in innovative and more mixed ways. So they have a core and a contingent policy. That needs to be well managed. Now, they could address that in lots of ways. So, there's lots of us as recruiters trying to get in the door, where PwC are coming in the window.
Yep.
And what are they doing? They're supplying some skilled people on a contingent basis to a client for vastly more money than we would charge.
Yeah, under a different title.
Under a different title. So I think there is scope to do this. I don't want to underplay how much we need to change some of what we do to grab hold of it. But I think we can. And when I see it working really well, I see really good and deep partnerships that are delivering really innovative things. And, sitting on the panel that I was speaking on yesterday about where we were talking about worker fraud, we're doing this in the lee of the cases of a couple of big UK retailers who had some cybersecurity problems. They didn't have cybersecurity problems. They had problems with what people did in their businesses because they didn't know what was going on and they weren't well trained. So that piece around the vulnerabilities being human vulnerabilities, I think is on clients' agenda. As we dig into that, I think trusted partnerships are going to matter more and more and more. Can we get there? You take the narrow road. It is difficult, but I think it throws us back on what are the traditional virtues of the industry: being genuinely consultative, understanding client needs, and really good candidate care.
And this is every interview I've done in this series. Everyone's echoing the same thing, and this is coming from end users. It's coming from yourself. It's coming from people, as you know, who run big recruitment businesses. I mean, it's fascinating. It's almost like we're going back. We're going round in a big full circle back to where we come. It's just got a slightly different wrapper on it now.
I think that's right. And I was sitting on a panel I was on yesterday. I was sitting next to the TA lead for a really big global business. And we were talking about how do you know who's who in your contingent workforce. And the answer that she gave was, ultimately, you're going to have to get your partners to do that work for you.
Right. Yeah.
And you're going to have to understand that is high value work. And that's right. So there is a piece over here. And I still occasionally teach an HR summer school in the summer where I do a piece broadly about labour markets and engagement and all of that. And my favourite phrase is, if you people are your greatest asset, which everyone tells us they are, why do you buy them like paper clips? That's not sustainable in this labour market.
Yep. The recent announcement, the Adecco Salesforce tie-up thing, almost points to people are less important and actually there are more paper clips coming in type thing, in theory. What's your sort of take on that deal? And how is that going to change? Because other people are going to follow suit in some format, presumably.
That's interesting because I don't think that's how Adecco would frame it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think if you talk to them, they'd say there are obvious efficiencies in that approach, but you're always going to need human beings.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that thing about both and. How do you make the best of the technology and bring the right human skills to the table?
Yeah.
And for firms in our sector, there's something here that I've heard lots of clients say, which is, they haven't put it this way, only I would quote Adam Smith, but the kind of Adam Smith thing of your clients are not going to be as good as you are in using the technology for people deployment, because we're the specialists.
Yeah.
So what I think one of the big challenges to that is how do we clear enough space for investment?
Yeah.
And if you're Adecco, clearly, huge global player, you've got capacity to do things that maybe small and medium-sized firms haven't. But just that thing about sensible investment in ways where you can lead your clients with the technology, not the other way around. And I see lots of REC members, small and large around the country, doing some quite innovative things now.
Yeah, yeah. I had a tech guy who from HR tech, rec tech, etc. And on this, and I was waiting for an absolute beating. He was basically going to say like, you'll be dead in 5 years. Don't worry about it, sort of thing. Quite the opposite. He was basically saying, the best HR tech, the best rec tech, you've got to have people working alongside it. It's not a replacement. It's to make everybody so much more efficient, so much more effective. That's exciting when you sort of think about it.
So we say three things to REC members about technology. The first is you got to run towards it, not away from it.
Yep.
You stick your toe in the water. Second is don't work from the tech to the business, work from your business to the tech. So what's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And then the third thing is you've got a tech stack, and loads of your tech providers are putting things into their stack. Now, what are they? Do you understand how they work, and are they effective for you? Now, they might be, they might not be, but that sense of we're experimenting on solving our business problems with this stuff.
Yep.
But always bearing in mind, ultimately it's the thing that preserves the humanity of of our sector is the nature of our product. If you've got a product that can say no, then you need a persuasive human being. There's also there's also the liability point, which is whatever happens in your AI black box, you're liable for any decisions it makes. So you might want to know what they are. Yeah,
absolutely. And we've already seen some good examples of where that's gone awry. So let's break down the industry. So we've got, I still don't know the number. I'm going to say 35,000 recruitment companies in the UK. It goes up and down.
I'm a skeptic of that number, as I think you suspect.
Yeah.
I tend to work on the basis that there are 8,000 to 10,000 of what you'd call robust recruitment businesses.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they've got an employee, but they're more than just someone occasionally doing a bit of recruitment in the back on the side. But
there's a lot of solo recruiters.
Yes.
So let's just start with that group for a second. So how do you see their businesses growing in the future based on, if you were sitting down today and you had a solo recruiter sitting opposite you basically, and they're going like, I'm hustling away and I'm doing my deals and that type of stuff, but I really want to enjoy the next 5-year journey. I want to do well and etc. What advice would you be giving them around how they're constructing their business, how they're using the tools available to them, etc.?
Well, firstly, and I don't think this will surprise you, and I think we both said it for a long time, if you're a solo recruiter, specialism.
Yeah.
So, be a big fish in a small pond, and work that pond absolutely rigorously. Know your people, know your space, understand your clients' needs. I think after that, it's then, what are the quick fixes for business processes that just speed you up? So, and we did some work with last year with someone who had been a Formula One chief engineer, and so we've kind of adopted from the phrase "does it make the car go faster?" So as a solo recruiter, does it make the car go faster?
Yep.
What can I do? You've mentioned to me before the site. There's an AI for that. Okay, what can I pull in? It doesn't need to be super complex. I think the big thing for any business thinking about technology investment, small, solo, or even sort of moderate size, is just remembering that the bells and whistles do 20% of the work and have 80% of the cost.
Yep.
So what can you bring in that is pretty generic and just put it to work feels really important.
Okay. And then if we look at the other end of the spectrum, because again, I'm really fascinated by the shift in market share that's going on at the moment, because there's a lot of smaller recruitment companies, if I don't use the right expression, I'm going to use it, eating the lunch of some of the bigger players, because you've got smaller recruitment companies who are able to deliver different types of solutions that before wasn't really in their wheelhouse. You shouldn't be touching this. You're definitely punching above your weight.
Reaching into MSP and things like that.
Yeah, or even doing just thing like, a 5-person recruitment company doing an RPO Light, and it's just like, well, why the hell are you doing that? You've got no right to do that, but they are, and they can, and it's working.
Yeah.
So again, with the bigger players, and we do obviously, we read a lot in the papers about some of the bigger players, and they're down a bit by 15% here and 12% here and that type of stuff. Are we seeing a period of time when the bigger players will be smaller, the smaller players will be punching more above their weight, etc.? Is there a bit of a convergence going on here in market share and market dilution?
Can I work from the broad canvas then?
Yeah.
For me, the broad canvas is that we're really good as an industry at doing 3-letter acronyms and making it. We know why we do it. I mean, I do it, you do it, and making it seem more complex than it is. Yeah. Well, likewise, it's making it seem more complex than it is. Yeah. So I've talked to audiences of medium-sized recruiters about, well, how are you moving into mini MSP? How are you moving into mini RPO? And sometimes the response is, that's complex, don't know how to do that. But to a client, so just talent.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's statement of work, if it's freelance, if it's classic agency, if it's MSP provided, if it's RPO, if it's other, if it's classic perm. It's just, how am I accessing talent? So it all starts from the client relationship. If you've got a really good, strong, trusting client relationship, clients will trust you to try things. And I think as clients have changed shape, and I think by and large British businesses have got pretty lean over the last couple of years, they have been more open to offers of partnership from a wider range of firms. So medium-sized firms are doing more of this kind of mini MSP, mini RPO work. Question mark, I'm not convinced they're doing it for the same clients as the big guys have been doing for. I think they're actually doing it for complexifying clients who haven't used that before.
Right, okay.
The big guys, I think, will bounce. And I think they'll bounce when there's more kind of momentum in the economy. Actually talking to the chief execs of the sort of maybe the big 30 in REC membership at the moment, the household names, by and large, they're feeling better than they have for 6 to 9 months at the moment. They've almost all got more temps in. They're seeing things start to thaw. I mean, I'm an optimist for the UK economy. Next to pack, I'm fond of saying, if you're running from a tiger, you just need not to be last. And we're definitely not last at the moment in terms of the global race for investment. So there are opportunities out there. I think those big firms will bounce. I think they'll also get quite acquisitive of interesting things quite quickly. The medium size side, I think the opportunity's been there. They are picking it up. I think the ongoing challenge will be, can you sustain the level of tech that will be required to be competitive?
Yeah.
And that's why for the medium-sized businesses, I think how you think about your tech stack and how you solve the agency problem with how you decide what to do and what not to do is really important. I've talked to a lot of sort of medium largish firms about what they are doing, and getting that CTO role or someone who has the capacity to do a CTO style job, even if it's just fractional, into the business. Because the biggest mistake we all make is thinking vendors are our tech advisors.
Yeah,
and that's where you end up over specifying something and it doesn't quite work for you. And we've all been through the challenging CRM deployment.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that mid-sized part is fascinating, and I'm really interested at the moment in seeing a lot of movement with those. There's fairly cash-rich mid-sized recruitment companies, or they're PE-backed, etc. Yeah. They've got money to invest. They're going to invest it, and they're a little bit more agile than some of the bigger players. They seem to me, that seems to be a really interesting part of the marketplace.
I think it is, and I think it comes back to that specialism point, which is you're big enough to stick yourself limpet-like onto a specialism, build a capacity, build a set of client relationships, and invest in the kind of tech that will keep you there.
Yeah.
The challenge, I think, and we've done quite a bit with one of our business partners on this over the last few months. The challenge is kind of understanding what's really working for you and what's not. That piece around the difference between top line and bottom line continues to feel really important. Pricing strategies. I think a lot of us as an industry forget when to stop selling and start negotiating with clients. And I think that's a really telling behaviour pattern of those medium-sized companies, partially because many of them are PE-backed, so there's a kind of flintiness there that is helpful. There's no point gathering top line that doesn't drop. And equally, once you've got the sale, it's time to start negotiating. And I think we still switch a bit late. And then we talked earlier about behaviour as a professional service. I think part of being a professional service is knowing that your work has value and walking away from bad business.
Sure. And that always has been. I don't think we've necessarily been very good. I think we're probably getting better at that because our backs have been against the wall. We sort of haven't had much choice. I'm going to say something now on camera, and this is going to be a compliment to you. And I feel really nervous basically saying it, but I've said this to your face before. but I think one of the things that I think have done brilliantly well is you've really raised the profile of the REC since you've been there. And I'm being genuine when I say that, because I think you've brought it into a very different light. I wouldn't say it was in a bad light before, but you've done this thing where you've made it a lot more commercial for people to understand the point of standards and the point of all this type of stuff. I think fair play to you, because I think it's done a lot for our industry, actually. I generally mean that.
That's very kind of you.
With that, though, you consequently spend a hell of a lot of time on the other side of the fence. So, I spend my time inside with recruiters all day long, every day. You're doing that, plus you're also with governments, plus you're also with end users, etc. Forget recruitment for a second. What are the governments? What do the political people? What do they want us to be as an industry, and therefore the people within it? And the reason why I'm asking that is if we can understand that a bit better, surely then we can identify where we're going to get the biggest opportunity, because the government, in theory, will create those opportunities. And then the same question then goes to the end user clients.
So let's start with government. And government's a kind of many-headed beast. Civil servants, politicians. I think the first thing is we can, like any B2B sector, we're more difficult for politicians to understand. Yeah. Everybody knows what Sainsbury's do. But even then, I remember working with Justin when he was running Sainsbury's 15 years ago, and he said, everyone thinks everyone who works for me stacks a shelf or works in a warehouse or drives a truck. Yeah. They don't know I've got a software company.
Yeah.
And likewise, Terry Leahy, when he was at Tesco, saying, government can have a cabinet meeting at Rolls-Royce 3 times a year if it wants, but everyone works for me and Justin. Mm-hmm. And there is an element of understanding what the economy is really like that is a big job for all of us who work in trade associations and so forth. My ongoing frustration is that government probably thinks of the industry in two ways. One is it's how you get a new permanent job, and it is, but that's about 20% of the revenue of what we do. We all know that 80% of the revenue of the sector is in forms of contingent labour. And then when you get into that, they think of two things. They think of blue collar, and they think of the job I did when I was a student.
Yep.
So my big job, and it's why I'm spending lots of time, managing to get recruitment into the public, into the professional services industrial strategy board, and then managing to get it acknowledged as a big subsector of professional services is a big step. We've got there now, but explaining that HS2 is happening because of the work that the people we talk to all the time do is incredibly important. Explaining that, your nuclear program, your rearmament program, if you look at the macro of geopolitics at the moment, all of that is happening because our firms are working with their clients to bring scarce skills into core projects. Nobody believes me when I say the Commonwealth Games only happened because GI Group stepped in, but the Commonwealth Games only happened in the way they did because GI Group stepped in. So there's a piece about understanding our power as an enabler. In terms of what they want from us, they're really only interested in how do we drive growth. I think on that, there is something about understanding what workers want and how people want to work today. That there's a big job of education to do, and when they get there, I think actually some of the policy stuff that they want will just flow from that. It'll take time, but I think broadly, government wants people to be treated right, and what that is a big part of kind of everything we're doing on the Employment Rights Bill and so forth. But they also want to understand how we get more from our people productivity-wise, and that is not just treating them nicely. That's a bit of we all know happy workers are a bit more productive, but actually it's about how we organise work, and I think government is really wrestling with that, and I think actually the expertise to help them is in our sector.
So that's great, but it sometimes feels like we don't get much. I think respect is the wrong word. Thanks from the government, I suppose. It feels like everything that the government throws at us, I'm not going to get political today, don't worry, but everything they throw at us, it seems to be just making that job harder, adding in more friction into the whole sort of process. But if you think that's what they're trying to do is the opposite, then that gives me hope, I suppose.
I think it's difficult to overstate how fast they're moving. And if you look at just this last 6 months, the core of the British government is actually quite small. So look at the industrial strategy, of which professional services is 1/8. The Secretary of State who is responsible for it is also responsible for trade. I've seen Johnny 3 or 4 times this year, and not only when he was in the away end at Coventry celebrating Sunderland's late winner the other week. Great picture if you haven't seen it.
Do you know it's taken you 32 minutes to actually get some sporting
football in? Yeah. Well, usually you bring it up. That thing about the guy who's responsible for all this also being responsible for the Trump trade stuff.
Yeah,
it's worth remembering that kind of the macro stuff draws them off all the time. Very little short windows of time. So we need to focus down on what do we really need. And a lot of this is about why would you invest in Britain?
Yeah.
It's about how do you make sure that the legal basis and the engagement basis for contingent workers in the UK is super attractive to projects being here. Because that's the thing that will drive growth, which is what they want, and it's also driving business for us.
Yeah.
Because net, we're looking for investment to happen in the United Kingdom, much more than it has in the past. And then on the client side, clients will need to tackle how they get more productivity from their labour.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big signal about things like the next increase is increasingly if a job doesn't create £20 an hour of value, the signal from government is to capitalise it.
Yeah.
How do we manage the value people create? Well, it's really good quality management. Our British business is great at that. Varied. We've actually the best businesses in the country are really good. We've got a long tail of poor practice. How does that improve? Actually, the lessons from the 80s are clear. It improves where people who've seen it done well go to places where it's being done less well.
Yep.
How do they do that? They move jobs.
Yep.
Or companies learn from people who are moving people jobs, us. So I think that role as specialists in understanding productivity, skills, accessing different workforces, I think this is where inclusion comes into the story as a commercial priority rather than as a nice to do. All of that stuff we have the capacity to deliver as a basically an adrenaline shot to growth in the country. That's my sales pitch to government. But actually it's what clients should want as well. It's going to
work in their favour.
So it's that switch from we're an industry that helps you fill the gaps that you've got to we're an industry that's helping you steward this set of skills that you're going to need to navigate your next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months in the knowledge that you are constantly reviewing that because things are moving so quickly. And that's a much deeper and more complex partnership than we've had before.
So let's now presume that the UK PLCs are going, we want you to do that. Great. Government are doing their bit. And, to be fair, I don't know when this is going to go live, but everything might have changed in a week's time. But, there seems...
Frequently does.
Frequently does, no. But as of today, there seemed to be some nice positivity around some of the trade stuff that's been built out, etc. So it feels goodish in comparison to where
certainly
it has been.
Feels better than it has, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, let's go with that one, yeah. Which is good. So let's presume the government are going to carry on figuring this out in the way that they're going to figure it out, and etc. That leaves us, the recruiters and the recruitment businesses. So what do we now need to do in order to be fit for purpose, to be able to go on a different journey than maybe we've been in the last couple of years have been quite long, it's been quite draining for a lot of people, etc. I think people the sun's shining in the UK, so let's presume the sun's having an effect as well. But there is that reality that we're feeling a little bit different, and we're going on a different journey now. We've done all our cost cutting where we've had to. We've removed stuff that we didn't need. We're getting our head around AI and how it could actually increase productivity and all that sort of good stuff. What happens next? What's the journey next for UK recruitment companies?
That thing about the sun shining really matters. I think I've said to you before that I genuinely believe all macroeconomics is vibes based. And doing the budget with the next increase on Halloween was kind of a real downer, and the sun coming out in February, March, April has been a little bit of a lifter. I think that what we're seeing right now is a bunch of companies on the client side who know what they want to do when they feel confident to do it. They've been through the same process that we have. They've controlled costs. They're lean. They know they need to grow. They have an idea of what they're doing. And that hand has been hovering over that button for months, in some cases for years. So the question is, how do we help them press the button? And when they press the button, how do we help them do it efficiently and productively? Well, the first thing to understand is our competitor world has changed. So you've got big consultancies, you've got platform-based businesses, you've got all sorts of innovative offers of engagement, some of which kind of are in a really great space and really provocative, and some of which, frankly, I struggle with ethically.
Yep, agreed.
But clients have choices. Clients will always look for value.
Yep.
So we're already seeing a little bit of clients saying, "Oh, we might come to you with that when we press button. We just want to try this first."
Yeah.
And that's that thing about letting them explore.
Yeah.
And not doing business that you don't want to do.
But that's an important point there, because you said about, sorry to interrupt, they're looking for value. It's not about cheapest. It's looking for value, return on investment. Right?
Yeah, and low prices will get explored.
Yeah. But
what we tend to find, certainly with our members, is that unsustainable low prices bring people back to a discussion that says, "No, that didn't really work."
Yeah.
So holding your position matters, but then helping them hit the button in the best way possible. So we go back to something I said earlier on. if this button is the problem that I'm thinking about, what's the smoothest way for me to press that button? And have you got some ideas about how I might press that button? And if it's this skill need and I can't access it round here, where could I access it in the country?
Yeah.
Or how could I build it? Or what are the alternatives?
Yeah.
And just that kind of 1-2 step ahead piece feels like it starts to build trust in a conversation that's not about can we service your business, but how are you trying to solve your business problems, which might then lead you back to what we can do for you. And that's a pretty classic discussion. But I think what I'm seeing right now in the business community more broadly, and maybe I should have started with this, but I'm increasingly convinced that one of the challenges we have is generational. And I'll say this now, it's you and me that's the problem, right? It's people who've grown up running their businesses in the period between 2008 and 2022. What's unique about that period is that money's basically free. Markets are relatively stable, and where they come off because of big macro things like the pandemic, where government's just basically chucking cash at keeping people solvent. That's not the world we're in anymore. And the challenge is we've got a lot of business leaders who are waiting for things to go back to normal. Things have gone back to normal. What we've got now is normal.
It's the new
right?
normal.
Go back to the 80s or the 70s or the 90s, right? The Russians are messing around in Eastern Europe. It's all a bit cagey in the Middle East. Interest rates are 4%. That's what an economy looks like. But what it does is for clients, it removes a lot of what were slam dunk decisions.
Yeah.
So suddenly that thing about big data will give me the answer and then I'll press the button. That doesn't exist anymore. One, because big data doesn't exist because there's so much data that something Tim Bradshaw, who's speaking at our conference in June, said to me, which I absolutely get, which is we confuse information and intelligence all of the time. You can have all the information in the world. It's not going to tell you what the signal is. It's the application of intelligence that tells you what the signal is. So if you've got a client who's basically blinded by what's going on, knows they need to do something that's labour adjacent, is hands hovering over the thing, what do they need? They need specialists. And that's where we can help clients.
Which I think is spot on. And I think it does beg the question, is that do we have the people within our industry to go and have those conversations? Because the conversation to get someone to push the button is a big conversation. I hate, in fact, we've even had that conversation. I mentioned the Russians at the same time, and they're getting nervous. But that piece.
Sergei's outside to pick us up.
But that piece around getting a customer or getting a market to start pushing the buttons, to create some urgency, to move forward, to be deliberate about your growth plans, that requires a certain skill set to unlock that.
Yeah.
Do we have that in our industry?
In parts, yeah.
In parts.
And
are they the ones that are going to win this?
I think that's right. But a lot of the conversations I have at the moment with recruiters, you find a lot of business leaders who are doing a lot of BD. Now, partially, if the market's tough, you want to lean on BD. Thing. But actually, it's also skill set because it's a certain set of skills and it feels very different. So how we build the skills of our consultants up to have different conversations, more complex conversations, more commercial and business relevant conversations. Lots of fantastic people in our industry. But I think that piece about, you started by asking me about barriers to being seen as professional, barriers to entry. I think this is where a barrier to entry is coming up. And part of the answer to it is, how do you have that conversation that's a bit more strategic about solving client problems? Because the challenge for us is that greenfield operations have the capacity just to invent what they do.
Yeah, sure.
And tell exciting stories of variable levels of accuracy about how they do it. So there's something there about, have we as thought about what the consultant of 2030 looks like? I think some companies have, and we started to move that way. And we're looking at, I had a discussion with a leader of one of the big corporates today who was saying that they're thinking about kind of redesigning what they do in their workspaces, integrating more of the tech, having more thought to the design of the engagement of the human experience. Because if you're running a branch network, branches typically are smaller than they used to be.
Yep.
That's less fun.
Yep.
And so the employee engagement thing changes, but also smaller branches, fewer people to learn from, hybrid, fewer learning experiences. I think for us, and we've discussed this, for us, I think how we train consultants to compete in this market is just going to get a bigger and bigger and bigger part of the difference.
And we talked about this whole thing around the future fit, being a future fit recruiter. What does that actually look like and that sort of thing? I'm just checking the clock and I'm conscious of time because I know you and we can talk for hours. We haven't even talked about rugby yet, which I find extraordinary. And I'm not going to now drop it in because we will be another 3 hours.
I'm holding myself there.
I'll see you at the Lions. I suppose my parting question to you is, based on everything that you're seeing, and I do generally mean this when you have such a good barometer, I think, of what the hell's going on, because you're sitting on 3 different sides of the fence, if that's even possible. Are you excited about the next 2 to 3 years? Are you excited about the next 10 years? Is it just excited about getting through till Friday? How are you feeling about the market just generally? And that's the global piece.
When I look at our data, and so ROJ, our main piece, goes back to 1998. There's a reason people have found the last few years tough, which is, while it's it'd be nowhere near as bad as 2008, 2009 or the Russian debt crisis or 2020, it's been longer.
Yeah.
And that saps, it saps at resilience. I am seeing more positivity about now in the market, and I think some of that's cyclical. Ultimately, it's a cyclical sector. Things will turn again. People, as Sander from Randstad said recently, you can only stop hiring for so long.
Yeah.
So there's a whole piece there that feeds into it. I do think as an industry there's a bridge for us to cross, and some firms are farther across it than others. And part of my conception of the REC's job, I'm sure you'd think the same of TRN, is to help firms get to where they are to be competitive in this new market. Someone asked me recently, kind of, am I still enjoying the job? And and more than enjoying it, I'm glad I'm doing it. I'm glad I'm doing it now, because there's so much that's happening that actually there's real meaning in helping firms now navigate this market. And we're doing all sorts of stuff I never expected the REC to do, like looking at kind of how verifiable credentials could reduce the GDPR load of recruiters in the UK and smooth the compliance and get people back dealing with reduce costs, get people dealing more with clients and candidates. There's a whole load of stuff that's coming down the track, but change is a constant. Yeah. And it comes back to what I said about this is normal. Where we are now is normal by comparison to what we had for 10 years in the 2010s. However comfortable that felt, it wasn't a normal economy.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, to everyone, get comfortable with the new normal.
Absolutely.
Crack on. Neil, as always,
thank you, James.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. And that's a wrap for this episode of the TRN podcast. Thank you for listening. And make sure you grab the free episode toolkit. All the links are in the description. And click follow in your podcast app so you can get notified of our next episode. If you want to get more out of your business and your people, then please unlock 30 days from our platform, TRN World, for free. And help yourself to all our training content, our guides, our templates, and peer insights. You can get started at trnworld.com/trial. And finally, if you found this episode of the TRN podcast of use, please share it with your network and tag TRN on any socials with your takeaways. Otherwise, message us directly if we can help in any way. We do reply to every question. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on the next TRN podcast.